I'm speaking with James Anderson, CEO of Guanajuato Silver. James, it's a pleasure to speak to you today. How are you?
I'm good. It's always a pleasure to speak, Rob. And for your listeners, I can tell you, Rob has been an investor, a supporter of what we're doing for about 4 years. And I really appreciate the support, Rob, the longevity at which that you've had an interest in what we're trying to do in Central Mexico.
My interest is so high, I'm going to tell you a secret, James. It's a beautiful day here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It is a gorgeous day. The weather couldn't be better. And I'm so committed to this conversation and getting a full deep dive on your company that I'm indoors in an office to have this conversation. But as soon as we're done, I'm going out there. It's so nice outside. Um,
Well, I
so,
wish I was there. It is a beautiful day here in Guanajuato as well.
oh, okay. So both of us have a high level of, dedication to the company and to this, vision. So let's talk about the company. I was there spring 2023. I got the lay of the land. I went through the mining operations, or at least three of them. Um, Went 300 meters underground. It's the deepest I had ever been underground previously. In Canada, they usually only let me go like 50 meters or something. Um, so I went. I thought it was a beautiful operation, extremely dry, very good ventilation. Um, I felt like the safety was very high, there at the mine site. But to be honest, the last 18 months since that visit has been pretty challenging. The share price, I mean, everybody can look at the stock chart. Obviously, that's the number one way that investors judge you as a company. And it's pretty self-evident, from like 50 cents to 20 cents at a time when silver and gold have been going up. So can you just delve into some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that you see for the company right now?
Absolutely. Well, okay. Well, let me sort of frame that on a larger framework. But we now have 4 mines, 3 production facilities. Our revenue comes 90% from precious metals, which is gold and silver. 50% of it's silver and about 40% gold, and only 10% base metals. That's from our mine in Durango, so a little further afield, probably 1,000 kilometers to the north of our operations here in Guanajuato. Yes, it has been challenging. Let's say, for the 18 months starting 2 years ago. Why was that? Well, the prices of silver and gold at that time, over that period of time, were not helpful. Neither was the ratio, the price of the Mexican peso, which at that time was probably the strongest currency on planet Earth. So all of those, the confluence of all of those situations, and trying to bring back online 4 different mines at that time, that was really challenging. I will say, though, that over the last 6 months, things have changed dramatically. The price of silver and gold, is pretty obvious. For most people, the devaluation of the peso is not nearly as obvious, but I can tell you from our operations, it is just as important. And the change in personnel and the addition of more discipline within our operations from top to bottom, from Carlos Silva, who joined as Chief Operating Officer in January of this year. So he's been on the job for just over 10 months. That has made all of the difference in the world. And we're already starting to see it in terms of having 2 consecutive quarters of operational earnings. We had not had that prior to that. That's, it's a big difference. What are we using that money for? Well, we're burying most of that money back into the operations right now as we continue to try and make our operations better, more predictable, and more profitable in the future.
Okay, yeah. So a lot there to unpack. So let's start with the the Mexican peso. So that was something that you have discussed since 2022, as 2022, 2023, and into early 2024. That was a headwind for the company. That was a headwind for your profitability. The foreign currency translation, you raise money in Canada and then you send the money down to Mexico, and the peso was very strong. But since May, June of this year, the peso has actually fallen quite a bit against the US dollar. How has it done against the loonie?
I think let's stick with peso versus US dollar, because we sell our gold and silver, right? We sell gold and silver concentrates. We get US dollars for them.
Okay.
But 60% of our expenditures are in Mexican pesos. So when the peso is strong, that's not good. When the peso is weak, as you point out, since June, really since the last federal election in Mexico, the peso has been very weak. It's gone from the currency traders always look at it as US dollar to Mexican peso. We were at 16 3/4 to 1. It's now 20 1/2 to 1. That's a big, big move against the peso. That's good for business here. We have done a fair bit in terms of hedging that position for the next 8 or 10 months. So, we're protected if that trajectory for the peso, the downward trajectory for the peso, continues, or let's say whether it backs up and corrects just a little bit. Well, we're protected at these prices to a good degree.
So you like the exchange rate exactly where it's at right now. I mean, it's good for you.
I'm willing to give up any additional, upside versus the peso deteriorating further. I'm willing to give that up to lock in some of these prices right here.
Got it. Okay. Now, obviously, the simplest way to analyze a mining company is how many ounces of gold and silver they generate from the ground every quarter. So just looking at slide 7 in your presentation, there's two metrics that are portrayed in this slide. One is quarterly revenue. So the revenue has been going up since Q3 2023. It's gone from 15.6 million in Q3 2023 to 20.5 million in Q2 2024. But also the gold and silver prices have gone up during that time frame. But you generated 787,000 ounces silver equivalent in Q3 2023. In Q2, it was 823,000 silver equivalent ounces. So a marginal increase, but the revenue was a lot higher. So the gold and silver price rally has been a nice tailwind for the company, but it hasn't fully translated into maybe the higher, revenue that many shareholders might have anticipated. How do you get the quarterly output above 1 million ounces?
So let me comment on the first part of that. Let's look in the rearview mirror for a second. And I think there's really two things going on. Number one is I've made it very clear, and Carlos Silva's made it very clear to our managers. It's not just more production that's important. It's more profitable production. And so being more focused on operational dilution in the mine, making sure that our overall grades are higher. It's a little counterintuitive, Rob. Sometimes people think, oh, well, you got higher grades, you're going to produce more. Not necessarily. We got higher grades, we're going to produce a little less, but be more profitable. And that's been the drive for most of 2024. The other thing that's important to note on that slide, you can see the spike in production in Q1 of 2024. Okay. That we were happy, very proud of that. We were doing a lot of third-party processing for a large company, a large mining company here in Guanajuato. Everybody was happy with that, but it's taken us about 6 months to come to a further agreement on how to continue that. The continuation of that is imminent, and so I think that will be helpful. But when you see that little spike and then back again in Q2. That's really the reason why.
Got it. Okay, so that makes sense, and that's an important point you make, and probably many investors in the mining industry don't fully understand that it's not just about more gold and silver being extracted and sold for more revenue, because it comes with a cost. So you need to actually pay attention to the strip ratio and what is the cost to mine more gold and silver from the ground. So at the end of the day, profitability is the name of the game, and you said it. So at this point in time, is the company on track to being profitable on an operating basis?
The short answer is yes. The headline for our last news release regarding that was we now have 2 operating quarters with mine operating profitability, and that's been well, obviously that's very important. We need to have these companies profitable. The previous quarters, as I described earlier, were tough for a whole bunch of different reasons, trying to put these older mines back into production. But we have poco, little by little, made that transition, and the last 2 quarters show that. I think it's also, accountancy for public companies can be extraordinarily difficult to figure out, and I do not pretend to be an expert. But one of the things that we can say that we did is we repaid our first Ocean Partners loan in full. We repaid our OCIM loan. That's the French family office that gave us money as really a gold prepay loan when we first got going. We've paid all that back in full. And now we only have one outstanding loan facility. That's with Ocean Partners, who we sell most of our concentrates to. We've done a similar thing where we've borrowed money, and it's denominated in gold, is what I'm trying to say. So we have about 6 months of paying that back as well. We've got about 24 months to go, but we are making good progress in reducing the company's debt, and I think that should be noted by investors.
Okay, so on an operating basis, you are in the black, so to speak, and the all-in sustaining cost dropped in the last quarter. You're under $24 an ounce silver equivalent. I know previously the goal was like $19 or $20 an ounce. Is that still within reach, or is it just things are just more expensive in the world today? I mean, is there a path to actually get the all-in cost down to $20 an ounce, James?
Yeah, I think there is. I do. I think production has to be higher. Because then you'll have a higher numerator, to divide those costs into. So production's got to be a little higher. But a number of the initiatives that Carlos has made, that the company's made over the last 6 or 8 months, almost always there's an investment, and then it takes a number of months, to be able to see the progress on that. There's things that we're doing right now, that where we're investing in new equipment, refurbishing other equipment to be able to make those costs be driven lower. So yeah, we're not done yet. For your listeners, Rob, the quarter over quarter, all-in sustaining costs dropped by 7%, cash costs dropped by 6%. I would be disappointed if in our next reporting quarter we weren't able to say the same thing.
Okay. And where are you speaking to me from right now, James?
I'm speaking to you from Guanajuato. As we mentioned, we've got 3 mines here, 2 production facilities. This is the Cata plant, the flotation plant that we make our concentrates in is about 100 yards away. We've got 2 of those plants. The bigger one is at El Cubo, which is about 7 kilometers in a straight line, west, south, pardon me, east, southeast of where I am. That one's, you know, maybe 15 kilometers as the road goes. But this one here is a little bit older. And you've been here, Rob, the office structure that I'm in, it's older. It was built some years ago. But it's very comfortable. And so when I'm in Guanajuato, which is about 40% of my time, this is where I'm working usually.
Yes, yeah, you know, I recall that office complex, right? So there's like an assay lab, there's a
Yep.
processing plant, there's a mine somewhere nearby. Although we didn't, you know, visit that one. We basically stayed in the laboratory, you know, in the office area, I guess, because that was what was safer, you know, at the time. Yeah, it's a beautiful complex, and it's got a lot of, you know, history to it.
It sure does. It sure does. I could talk about it a whole bunch. So in addition to everything that you've mentioned, there's also an exploration core shack, I guess we'd say in English, and a bodega de núcleo. And
Okay.
just up from me on the topography here is really sharp. So I mean, really directly up from me here, that's where the Cata shaft is. That's our main production shaft, and that's where the intake is for the plant. In terms of how we access the underground here, generally we drive 5 minutes around the corner. There's modern access at the Rias shaft. And the Rias shaft, I mean, it is super cool. It's 450 years old. This is like, it predates dynamite, right? Like, it was chiseled by humans. It's 8 meters in diameter, right? It is really cool. We still use it, right? And that's one of the main access points. But then further along the road, there's also the San Vicente entrance, where our rubber tired trucks can go in and extract material from there. The whole mine structure, right? We call it Valenciana. In the olden days, Valenciana was one mine of many along this the Veta Madre, the mother vein. Today we call the whole thing Valenciana, but there's all kinds of different portals and spots to get in the mine.
Very good. So, you talked about how, you have, uh, a new operating officer, or, he's fairly new. He started, this year,
Yep.
and he's very detail oriented, and he came with some new ideas, including some new capital investments to, make more efficient, some of the operations. So can you tell us about some of the key investments the company has made in the last several months?
Yeah, I'll give you just a couple of real simple ones to understand. Let's look at Topia for a minute. So Topia is the mine that's 1,000 kilometers to the north in Durango. It's been operating for 70 years. For the past 30 years or so, no one has spent any money on the plant. I mean, it was an old struggling plant. Well, we can't change the whole thing overnight, but one of the things that we've invested in this year and just over the last several months are new filter presses. We make 2 different concentrates there. One is a lead concentrate, which is really high grade silver, and one's a zinc concentrate with lower grade silver and gold. The new filter press for the lead concentrate was operating towards the end of September, and the new zinc concentrate filter press has been operating just for a couple of weeks. Probably $500,000 to be able to install those new filter presses, and it took some time to do it and haul the big filter presses up there, but they're operating now. What does that do for us? It increases grade in the concentrate just slightly, but even more, well, just as importantly, it more efficiently, in a 21st century manner, takes out a whole bunch of the moisture from the concentrate. It does not make sense to transport water in our concentrate, hundreds of kilometers to our delivery point, to Ocean Partners. So almost instantaneous efficiencies. We will, according to the project economics, we will recoup our investment in about 14 to 16 months. So is that a good business? Yep, it is. Does it show up immediately on cash flow sheets and and balance sheet? No, that takes a few quarters, and a lot of the investments can be seen like that.
Okay. And what about new exploration? Is the company looking around, trying to discover some new pockets, some new zones of higher grade silver and gold ore?
So the short answer is yes. I would put a caveat on that. Over the last 2 or 3 years, it's although I am an explorationist at heart, it's been really tough to divert money away from making the plants, making the operations better, safer, towards exploration. However, we just put out new exploration results from Pinguico. We just put out new, which is another past producing mine that's about 8 kilometers away from El Cubo, that we own and continue to advance towards more full-scale production. And we just put out some drill results from where I am, from the Valenciana complex, a number of very good results, including one result that's really cool. It's in an area called Maravillas. If you think about and you can see this on our website, there's 4.2 kilometers of the Veta Madre structure is what we own. There's a number of different ore shoots that are these historically very high grade areas where we're within the mine. There's one area right in the middle called Maravillas where there's hardly any exploration, and I can't really give you a good reason why that is. We drilled the first drill hole there. It's announced last week. We get a 3.2 meter interval, which is a good mining width for us.
Oh yeah, very good.
Almost 500 silver equivalent, and within that there's a narrower interval that goes over 2 kilos of silver equivalent. Like that's a really good result for us. What it means exactly and where we're going to follow it, I don't think we know just yet. Sometimes you can get lucky on a first drill hole, but it's an important drill hole. It's an important signal that we need to concentrate on that area, and we will.
Very good. And so speaking of money, obviously a very important topic when we're talking about investing. One of the key criticisms of the company, and I'm just going to be blunt, is dilution. And I think that's pretty evident in just the share structure, the share count. I know you're a big shareholder. You can't love seeing the share count go up, every year. Tell us about dilution, and is there light at the end of the tunnel here? I know you just closed an $8.7 million financing at the end of October, and then just a few days ago, there's this $7.5 million announcement. Although I don't think you've tapped the ATM yet, you announced it, so it's possible. What can you tell us about that, James?
Yeah, happy to comment on all of that. Okay, number one, yeah, I'm a big shareholder, and my wife's a big shareholder, and that's not going to change. So if we could wave magic wands and build a mining company without raising money, that would be pretty helpful. When we first embarked on this, 3 years ago, I had the idea that silver was going to run to $30, $35 then. Well, it didn't, right? It went to 18 and then hovered around 21 for a long time. Well, we weren't making very much money with these mines at that time, especially with the need to invest in these old mines. I would note too, if you look at other mines, either silver mines or other mines in North America especially, what are the capex requirements and all these things? 150, $250 million. Well, we've done all of this for maybe $40 million. The market has never opened up where we could, take in all the money that was necessary to be able to put these things back into production. So what have you got? You now have a company with a I don't know, I'll call it $100 million Canadian market cap, probably a little less, right? So we'll call it 75 million US. We've got 4 mines, and if you include Pinguico and Orcon, both of which we've extracted material from surface and have processed and want to develop. If you include those, we've got 6 mines, 3 production facilities. You show me what other company has been able to do that in 3 years with the type of money that we've been able to raise from the marketplace. So yes, I'm sensitive to dilution. I'm also sensitive to the survival of the company when things don't go, exactly the way we want. With regards to the 8.5 million Canadian, and again, I want to
Canadian.
that for your.
It's like 6 million US. Yeah.
Exactly. We like when we're promoting it, we like to wave our arms and wow, we're $8.5 million, but it's only 6 million US. And so what happened? Well, Eric Sprott said that he wanted to invest more money in Guanajuato Silver. And with all candor, when Mr. Sprott says that he wants to invest money in your company,
you say yes, sir.
The correct answer is yes, sir, right away. Would you like French fries with that? So we did that. There were 4 other institutional players who wanted to come alongside Eric. So I said yes. That was at 24 cents. The stock immediately went to 30 cents. And then as the vagaries of the penny stock market goes, Rob, 3 weeks later or 2 weeks later, the silver ETF, SILJ, the junior silver ETF, rebalanced.
Oh, that's right. Forgot about that.
It's special code. Rebalance is special code for selling your stock. Right?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And they're, I don't understand what they do. I think they're crazy. They buy at the top, they sell at the bottom. They wanted to get out of smaller cap names. Guanajuato Silver was one of them. They end up turning around and buying a bunch of gold and copper names, which doesn't make any sense for me in a silver ETF, but nonetheless, that's their prerogative. They sold 14 million of our shares in a 3-day period. You can see it on the tape. It's pretty easy. Drove the stock down to under 20 Canadian cents. And I think the stock is just now, it's digested that and is recovering from that. But none of the other, the situations within the company are different.
I think with, the SILJ, which is this junior silver miners exchange traded fund in the US, which generates way more trading volume and capital flows than it should, quite frankly. I don't think it's a good ETF. And I'm not just saying that because they sold your stock. I've observed this ETF for the last couple of years. I don't know what their methodology is, quite frankly. I've seen them buy zinc stocks. I've seen them buy copper miners. And then I've seen them turn around and sell 6 months later, just on a whim. I don't get it. But I don't think it's a good ETF. And I think other people are starting to get around to it. If you want real silver exposure and exposure to silver miners, this is probably not the one to buy, quite frankly. So
I mean, let me just reinforce that with a couple of my observations. It's a silver ETF when when investors want to put some money to work in silver and maybe they don't know so much about mining and they go, well, hey, here's a small cap silver ETF. Okay, I'm going to put some money into it. Well, there's a lot of money for that. And that relatively large ETF goes and puts money into companies like ours with really small market caps. I mean, our stock trades, our stock is liquid, not like a lot of the other ones, but we can't absorb 14 million shares in the 3-day period without it affecting the share price, which is what happened. Their methodology, it would seem to me, is exclusively driven by and derived from liquidity and market cap. And that's not necessarily the best methodology to use in our business. So anyway, that's the situation. I don't, they do what they do. Good luck to them. They are still a shareholder of ours, albeit smaller. And Rob, 6 months from now, they'll get inflows and they'll be back buying up Guanajuato Silver shares aggressively. So
yeah, I'm just looking at the chart of the ETF and the performance. It's been finicky. It peaked, yeah, I peaked with silver in October, but it's taken a pretty big tumble since. But anyway, I feel like you would probably do better just by buying silver itself than buying this ETF. But what do I know? So let's get back to the company. So 20 cents a share, market cap is a little under 100 million on the TSX Venture in Canada. You put out some Q3 numbers, which showed some improvement, modest improvement. The trend is starting to move the way we want it to move.
yeah,
But shareholders who've been around like me have seen this before. We've had some false starts. So tell us, James, what does the future hold?
I think the future holds more stability, continued better economics within our mines. I should make one other comment too, just before we go too far down the. I just think it's apropos to what we were talking about, and that's with regards to the ATM. It's
Okay.
an at the market financing that we announced 10 days ago, I think, or maybe less. And you know, the market didn't care for that. I get that. Just for your listeners, right? It's not something that you can do, you know, at the drop of a hat. It probably took us 6 months to get all the regulatory approvals, to do all of the different things that are necessary to get that set up. After the Eric Sprott led financing, I can tell you we certainly, you know, are not going to tap into that anytime soon, unless things change in the marketplace. If the stock's much higher on volume, then what it does is it gives the company the ability for, you know, for a smaller commission than usually you're dealing with the brokerage houses, to be able to sell shares directly into the market and garner the money from that. Well, we have no interest in doing that. It is another arrow in our quiver that we can use to finance the company. But as we speak, we have, and so for a potential acquisition, Rob, or you know, some other thing that we want to do with the company, that's a possibility. But we have no interest in doing that right now. Certainly not after the ETF slammed the stock so hard. So I just want to comment on that and just sort of give your listeners some background to it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I understand why you put it in place. It makes sense from a risk standpoint for the company to have that in place. And obviously, you only tap that when either the terms are very favorable for you, like you said, a rising market, or you absolutely have to, right? So the company raised some money in, at the end of October. So that was about a month ago. The trend in the performance is starting to move up as we conclude 2024. So the market is all about forward looking. It's always trying to see 6 to 9 months ahead. So the best you can here, James, what can you tell shareholders about what's to come?
I think you'll see now that we've kind of regrouped at our production levels. I think you'll see a continued advancement in and then I'm talking about quarter over quarter, not necessarily month to month or week to week, but quarter over quarter, better production, lower costs. And what I like to tell people is that what we have built here is a platform for growth in precious metals mining in central Mexico, with lots of false starts and bumps along the way. I think we've done a good job with that. Now that we've established that, I want to establish a stronger company, and that goes right across the board in terms of personnel, mining assets, and be ready to take on the challenges, the vagaries of the mining business in central Mexico.
So you're in Mexico, you speak Spanish, you know the country very well, you know the politics very well as well. I'm just interested to hear your thoughts as a CEO in Mexico, a mining CEO who's very tuned in. What are your thoughts on the new administration in Mexico City? And then also, what are Mexicans thinking about the new administration north of the border and some of Donald Trump's very interesting ideas and plans for Mexico?
Okay, well, this should only take about 3 hours. Number one, let me say, I mean, I speak Spanish poorly. I don't want any of your listeners to think I'm bragging about my Spanish any better than it is. But it is important to me to be able to communicate at least at a rudimentary level with our team here. The team is 100% Mexican. We're proud of that. I do believe that that's a better methodology of working here. With regards to the new administration or the continuation of the AMLO administration under Ms. Sheinbaum, make no mistake, they are socialists, they are not business friendly, and they are certainly not mining friendly. And any mining CEO that is operating in Mexico that tells you differently, they should give their head a shake. They just increased taxes on mining companies. Slightly, marginally, right? But it's very telling. Operating mining in Mexico continues to be challenging on a number of different levels. Transfer of mining claims, instigation of new mining claims is pretty much at a standstill. So that's very telling about where the federal administration is at. Now, on the other hand, where is there a better mining jurisdiction? Right? I mean, mining is pretty much universally despised by governments, it would seem. Our ability to be able to put 4 mines and 3 production facilities back in production within a 3-year period, well, that speaks volumes, right? You couldn't do it anywhere else. You couldn't do it in Arizona or Nevada. You probably couldn't do it in well, I don't know of any other country that you could do it in. So,
well, you have a very special location with a deep, rich, history of mining. It's a very special location in Mexico, which is a mining country, but really, you have a very special place there.
100%, and I can tell you, with perhaps with a degree of hubris, that's not by accident, right? The company has been designed. No, I'm not interested in big open pits. I think it's going to be very difficult to permit that sort of thing into the future. Doesn't matter, not just in Mexico, but anywhere. So generally speaking, I want to have our mines underground and in old mining jurisdictions where you don't have to explain to the people in the community why mining is important, why it helps the community. They get it already. I was born in the great Canadian mining town of Timmins, Ontario. It is a fantastic mining jurisdiction, but soaking wet, it's 120 years old. Here you've got a mining jurisdiction that's 450 years old, right? So it is part of the culture. Well, at Valenciana proper, we have a mining museum. We own the mining museum, right? And it is we've sort of subcontracted that out to an events planning company. And so there's weddings and anniversaries that are held. It's a beautiful spot and it's super cool, right? But it is part of the fabric of the community. And that's the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I love that place. Hey, if I have a wedding, that's at the top of my list. I really love that place.
You have an
It's
open
quite
invitation.
beautiful. Ah, thank you. Thank you. Final question, James, and this is where the rubber meets the road. This is probably what all the shareholders and potential shareholders want to tune in for this question. So I'm going to throw at you a tough one here. You're a big shareholder. You said your wife's a big shareholder. We've seen some turnover in the shareholder base in the last couple of years. Will we see any of the insiders or management buy shares of the company on the open market in the near future?
So insiders, including Carlos Silva, who's our chief operating officer, our new chief operating officer, and Dan Oliver, both participated in the 24-cent private placement just 4 weeks ago. And I'm hesitating to describe this because I haven't made the filings, but I don't know that this is well. I crossed some stock in the market yesterday. My company, the seller, my RRSP, that's my registered retirement savings plan, the buyer. That's a little tax planning, and that's a statement about where I think the stock's going. For my retirement, I want the gains protected within my retirement account. So that's what I did. I hope that that's a big enough statement for your listeners.
James Anderson, thank you so much for your time. This was a very wide-ranging and insightful conversation. Thank you, James.
Thank you.